This is one of our super recaps of the last 10 books, not quite the last 10 books that we've read because we've sort of moved on a little bit. I can't believe that we're past book number 40. So usually we start the episodes with a story. So give us a story, Liz.
I guess I can tell you about the marathon that I ran in October. So I guess some people have, they've probably heard here and there little comments about our marathon attempt, which was our sub 3 hour attempt. It didn't quite work out.
Didn't quite work out like we planned, but we got a lot of, I guess, positive things out of it.
We did, yeah. I mean, it was the day. The day was not perfect. So it was kind of windy. It was a course that was by the water. That being said, the course itself was perfect. It was pretty flat. And it was 2 out and backs. So like if you were running half marathon, you'd go out and back once. And if you were running the marathon like we were, you went out and back a second time. So nice and predictable, kind of the way I like it. I tend to like boring races. So it was fantastic mentally for me. But there was one direction that was really windy. I think, what were the winds on that day again?
55 kilometers per hour, I think, and then gusting even higher than that. There was one section that this is sort of both our stories. We did the training. We weren't sure whether it would work, but we set off on pace. Mm-hmm. By halfway, we'd been out, we'd been back, and we were on perfect schedule. So we did the first half in 1 hour,
29:45 or something.
Yeah, we were like within 15 seconds of an exact half split. So for us, for our planning, we thought perfect because we haven't gone out too quickly. We haven't used more energy than we need to, and we're exactly on schedule. We were sort of looking at each other and I think thinking, hey, maybe this is on.
Yeah, I was definitely thinking that because I felt, and I figured, okay, so this is going to be the hard 10K with the wind in our face, like the first 10K, but the wind had picked up by then and it was actually much harder than the first 10K.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So
I think it took me about 2 kilometers going back into the wind and then I was way off pace.
Yeah. So I guess our imperfect training buildup, which was really imperfect because our marathon, the marathon that we were choosing, the dates kept changing because at first we were going to do Toronto, which was October 17th. And then that was canceled because of COVID. And so we had chosen, we were going to do Philadelphia, which is a November marathon. And then finally it was too hard to get across the border or too unpredictable.
Yeah. And because we did that, we pushed our training schedule back 5 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So we started one block, really the endurance block. We restarted it. So we did that twice.
Yeah. And then we had to change the marathon again because it was too hard to get across the border into the US. So we had found the small marathon in Georgina, and that was October 17th. So the original date. So then we had to move forward in our plan by like 5 weeks. So then we missed whatever section that was supposed to be. So we did the endurance twice.
Some of the speed training and some of the pace training.
Yeah. And then there was also in the training plan, because we chose the training plan from Advanced Marathoning, they actually have 2 or 3 kind of like test races or build-up races, or I don't remember exactly what they call them, but you race with it like sort of out from your goal marathon. You pick like some 2 or 3 between 8K and half marathon races. And those were non-existent for us because all the races in Montreal were canceled and we weren't going to travel for an 8K race. We ended up not having any of those. We sort of tried to do like a virtual one, I think, didn't we, Alan?
I guess we kind of did, but you don't get the race preparation and the sort of psych up and all of those sorts of things. Mm-hmm. You don't get the mental bit of it. You don't get the people around you. So
no, not the same at all. Yeah. And then I think one time we were just like, well, we'll just do it as a marathon pace training run or something, or at least I did. I think one of them I did by myself. So not ideal. So the buildup was not ideal. And so I guess we didn't really know what to expect in the race. And when we saw that halfway through, we were sort of like right on target, we were super encouraged. But then the conditions of the day didn't allow for that sub 3 hours. So we ended up running about 3:05.
Yeah, and in the second half of the race, we were together perfectly together, basically for the first half of the race. And the second half of the race, we sort of split up because the wind was blowing hard and we were both getting behind our kilometer pace schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And my mentality at the time was, darn it, I'm just going to fight this. I'm going to try and I'm going to try and force it and not worry about trying to conserve energy, but try to force it, because I figured if I could get up to the turnaround point, maybe I would have the wind on my back. And if I was still on schedule, I would find the energy from somewhere to keep going. So I sort of tried to force the pace a little bit. And I think you were a little bit more, okay, I know what my effort level is now, and I just need to be sensible. And you were a bit more measured. And so we got apart. I got a little bit ahead of you. In fact, by the time we turned around, I think I was probably, like 1 or 2 minutes ahead of you, 1.5 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. I remember seeing you at the turnaround. I still had probably, I don't know, 200 meters to go. So you must have been like 400 meters ahead of me.
So, but what happened to me then is I think I exhausted myself. So when I turned around, although I had the wind on my back, I couldn't kind of push the pace over and above the target pace in order to recoup back the seconds lost. And because I was failing to do that, eventually I got to the last 5K and I thought, well, it's gone and there's no way I can catch up. And mentally that was then a struggle for me as my pace started to fall off even more. And I think you were more measured and you started to catch up at that point. And in fact, probably if it had been about a K longer, we'd have probably finished together.
Maybe. Yeah. Because I remember being kind of surprised. I thought you were long gone. I thought if there was one of us that was going to achieve the goal, it was you, based on how far you were at that turnaround when I saw you. And then I remember passing one of the runners that we were running with in a group at the beginning. And he said, yeah, your friend passed me a while back. And then I think he had actually stopped because he had a cramp. And then, so he wasn't stopped because he was tired. So what I did was I tried to stay with him, and then he started running the pace that you're supposed to run for a 3-hour marathon. And I tried to keep up with him, but it was too fast. So even though I had kind of been a little more conservative than you, like I still couldn't maintain that pace on the way back with the wind in my back. So, but I probably had a better pace than I would have had if I pushed harder. So I guess I started catching up. I was surprised at the end. I remember hearing your name, like as I was getting close to the finish line, because you can't really see the courses. It's flat, but it was a little bit turny.
Well, the finish line was sort of round a corner, wasn't it? Into a field.
Yeah.
But you could hear the announcers.
Yeah, I remember that.
So how did you feel about failing the goal? You just invested 20 weeks and you're a miserable failure. So
I guess I kind of had two sides of it, because I was injured for part of the training plan as well. So I think I was sort of happy that I was no longer injured, that I had to stop running. But at the same time, I was pretty disappointed because the training plan was really hard. And, I just didn't want another result the same as the result that I had gotten like 2 years before. Yeah. So I just didn't want that. Yeah. I wanted at least a personal best or something. But but I do feel like afterwards I was really determined to try again. So
yeah, I think when I say you're a miserable failure, I was kind of tongue in cheek, poking fun at you a little bit. Yeah, I think like you, our preparation wasn't ideal, and race day wasn't ideal conditions, and therefore you say, well, there's something more that can be done. Probably from my point of view, I ran sort of 2:04 high, so almost 2:05. And for me, that's the second fastest marathon that I've ever done in my life, and that was the fastest one was 23 years ago. So when I thought about it, I thought, well, that's pretty darn good. I can take some positives from just the numbers, but of course you didn't achieve your A goal. So there's still something to do. I think we both went into the training thinking, well, the training is a journey to be enjoyed and to be appreciated for its own thing. And so we didn't we didn't have anywhere near the sort of feeling that, oh, the training's been wasted or it hasn't worked. It was great to sort of discuss, okay, so how do we feel about the training? Oh, maybe we left too much on the training ground. We tried to train, we were talking with Ben Rosario. I noticed you getting a free consultation in our last podcast with Ben Rosario.
Yeah. No shame.
Getting the Nazalite coach give you professional tips on how you should train. One of the things that...
Yeah, you're welcome, Alan.
Cheers. The check's in the mail. One of the things that I think was our take home was we tried to train from the beginning at the target race pace as our target.
Which was wrong.
Yeah, when in fact we weren't able to do that at that time. We should have trained a bit slower and then cranked it up as we got fitter.
Lesson learned. And also a reason to try again.
Yeah. From my point of view, I think, time's running out for me.
Yeah, you do say that sometimes, but I really don't think it's running out. Really.
I'm in my 60s and I shouldn't be necessarily trying to do a sub 3 hour marathon, but I think, well, I've still got the will and I still think it's sort of touchable, and I still think there's a gap to be obtained that can be done. I think I'm going to try. So I'm going to have another go this year, probably at the end of the year.
Yeah.
From your point of view, you're young, so you've got years ahead of you. You're just going to get better probably with training blocks. Yeah,
hopefully. But that 3 hour marathon, that's been a long journey. It's been a long time goal. But I think, me and you both, we talked about the training plan we followed, and we both were kind of like, those medium long runs, those were something that we never really did. Like we've done medium long runs in terms of distance, but we never did sort of like at a pace. Whereas those medium long runs we were doing in the advanced marathon plan, they were not just like an easy jog medium long run. It was sort of like, it wasn't a tempo run either, but it was sort of I guess kind of like an easy aerobic.
It was sort of a tough long run pace.
Yeah. So, and there were a lot of them. And I feel like that was maybe something that'll give us kind of an extra boost, because it's something that we both never really did. Like we never really paid attention to our
sort
paces.
of training in our legs that we didn't have before.
And maybe the second time around, it means that it'll be easier.
I have a funny feeling it won't be any easier. Hey, if it was easy, it wouldn't be so much fun.
Yeah.
It wouldn't feel as good as it's going to feel when you eventually do it.
True. That's right.
So what are you going to do this year? We're going to have another go. We're both going to have another go at Toronto in October. That'll be 3 hour. Are you going to have a try in the spring?
No, not for me. No, I'm gonna. I don't think spring marathons just historically for me are never produce good results. So I didn't even sign up for one. I'm actually doing some indoor track once a week, and I'll probably do. I have a bunch of deferred races from 2020. Like I had signed up for some local 5s and 10s, and even a half marathon. I actually have a half marathon in May to do, but it's all like deferred races from 2020, and then we're going to do in July the trail race that we signed up for.
Yeah, that's right. The Quebec Mega Trail.
Yeah. And how about you?
I'm going to go full on long, slow distance for trail training. I'm going to Portugal to do a 5-day, all being well with travel, etc. I'm going to Portugal to do a 5-day stage race.
Which is exciting.
Which should be fantastic. Yeah, I haven't been out and about for a while. So I'm just going to sort of focus on that and just try to put lots of sort of stamina type train running into my legs. And maybe I'll have a pop at some of the Quebec provincial age group records if they come up.
I think you should, because some of them are a bit soft.
Well, you're saying that I'm not very good. I need a soft record, otherwise.
No. I'm just saying that you're so much better than the record that, like, even if you were not training for the distance, you could probably get them.
Yeah, well, that would be fun. It's a bit like going searching for FKTs or something like that. It's oh look, there's a little record in the province in my age group that I can knock off.
Take down.
I might just try and collect a few of those. That could be fun. And then go for a real earnest marathon training program. I guess we're talking about whether we'll repeat our training program with lessons learned. We might just do that to give it the best chance to work correctly. Because we figure that it has things to offer. So we'll see how that goes. We'll make our minds up during the summer.
We will also take some of the advice we got from Coach Ben.
Yeah, no doubt you'll be talking to other people on the podcast and getting free consultancies as well.
Yeah, I seem to be pretty good at that. But since you're my training partner, it means
I get the
that
free
you
consultancy
also
as well. Yeah,
you also
it's true.
benefit.
I can blame you, but then I can steal all the knowledge.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yep.
Good stuff. But as I hope our listeners can tell, we had a ball trying, and it was just fun. I mean, I think if you hit the goal, it's just a great big extra bonus.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we sort of phase our learning and our trials and our efforts and our training to be fun anyway. To be good and enjoyable in like the inverted commas. Yeah. Sometimes it hurts a lot.
That it does.
So I guess that's a long story for our intro, which is our 3-hour marathon effort. Anything else to add on that?
No, I think we've pretty much described it all.
Okay, so maybe we'll play some intro music and we'll get on with the 10-book summary.
Sounds good.
Oh, I don't have the music. Could you just sing it for me? No?
No, I can't. No,
Go on.
No. And there's no... and there are no words.
You can make the noises.
So I'll need to get some instruments for next time. It's okay.
Don't worry. Just do it. I'll edit it out afterwards. No one will
right.
know. Hi, and welcome to the Running Book Reviews podcast, where we review running books to help you decide if you'd like to read the books for yourself. We also hope listening to us chat doesn't make you fall asleep, but actually helps you keep you motivated about your own running and maybe inspires you to try something new in your own running. Onwards and upwards, we say. My name's Alan, and here with my co-host Liz, we're going to do something a little different for this episode. Not necessarily that different, because if you've been listening to us, you'll see that every 10 or so episodes, we do a review of the last 10 books that we've done and what touched us about them, what we learned, what was remarkable, what was fun, and generally the highlights. Okay, so without further ado, let's go rewind back to book number 31 and talk ourselves through up to book number 40.
So the first one was Today We Die a Little by Richard Askwith, which was the book about Emil Zatopek, who was the Czech runner that won the 5,000, 10,000, and the marathon in the same Olympic Games. So I guess I particularly like this book because my parents are immigrants from the Czech Republic, and my dad used to always talk about Emil Zatopek. And I remember not really caring when I was a teen, and now I realize how remarkable he was and how well loved he was around the world. I had kind of heard about his athletic accomplishments, but never heard so much about what a great person he was as well, and a good sportsman. I also learned about communism and why survivors of that era are so suspicious of everyone around them. And it kind of makes me understand a little bit of, like behaviors that I see today in my parents.
Yeah, it seemed like everybody was informing on everybody else, brothers informing on mothers. And
yeah, really, like you couldn't, like as if you couldn't trust anybody. And also, I find that Richard, the author, Richard Askwith, was kind of amazing because he ended up learning Czech, which is not really an easy language.
He was a fantastic guy. He was totally amazing. I mean, one of the wonderful things about doing this podcast is you get to talk to people like that, who otherwise you never would. I guess everybody knows, people in running anyway, knows Zatopek, and they know the fact that he's famous because he won the 5K, the 10K, and the marathon gold medals at the 52 Olympics, was it? But he won the 3 events, and it's never been done. But one thing that I saw in the book that kind of hit me was that, to give you an idea of how good he was, one time when he was up and coming, he took the Czech 10K record down by 2 minutes, took 2 minutes off the 10K record. And he also ran a world record in the 20K. I guess the world record in the 20K is not that frequently tried, but he did it by running 2 10Ks, both in sub 30 minutes.
Wow.
which doesn't sound like sub 30-minute 10K for a world-class athlete these days. Doesn't sound like a big deal. But back in the day, there were only 5 people in the world who could do one 10K in sub 30 minutes. So there are
Yeah.
only 5 people who can do one 10K, and he did 2 10Ks back to back to set the 20K world record,
That's incredible.
which is totally amazing. Zatopek was the first real, for me, the first real mileage boss. You know, you do like incredible trainings that you just couldn't like imagine.
Yeah, and just some of the funny stories. Some of the stories were also pretty inspiring. It was almost like, you know, the saying, where there's a will, there's a way. It's like he was really an example of that, because, you know, there were stories of him being out on kind of like guard duty. So he had to like stand in a specific place. You know, he was guarding whatever he had to guard, and he would just do high knees for like hours, or so like running in place, like high knees. I mean, I do 30 meters of like high knee drills, and I'm kind of tired after. I can't even imagine him doing like high knees for, you know, 2 hours or whatever he did.
He also seemed like a fun guy. He's the sort of guy you'd like to have a beer with.
Mm-hmm.
You
And
know,
I think a lot of people would just go over and, you know, visit to chat with them.
Yeah. He would invite you into his house, and he went and knocked on his door. I think there's stories about people going knocking on his door, and eventually his wife had to say, "Hey, stop just inviting everybody in." Because
there needs to be boundaries.
Okay, so that was Today We Die a Little. I think we pretty enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2 book, bit of a totally different change up. The Running Drug by Tim Beynon, a guy he said that he won the anti-lottery, because he's sort of the most unlucky guy in the world almost, because at the age of 40, he was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And the chances of you having prostate cancer at age 40 are like really, really tiny, like 1 in 10,000, or it's like winning the reverse lottery. But also at the same time, the fact that he was diagnosed early, if he hadn't have been getting tested and he wasn't diagnosed, he probably would have died. But because he was tested early and found early, he was able to have an operation. So we went through his journey with him on his discovery and the traumatism of him having prostate cancer and waiting for tests and stuff, then having an operation, which was done by robot, which was that's
amazing. Pretty cool. Yeah. And then what he did afterwards was, you know, he started raising money for charity, and
then decided that the best way to do that would be to run the London Marathon,
which is very hard to get into.
Yeah, but he used his prostate cancer situation to bypass the lottery.
Yeah,
and
he was raising money
about it. When we were talking with him, he was going, "Oh, I kind of cheated. I used the fact that I had prostate cancer to get through the lottery to raise money." We're going, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, completely legit. 100% allowed to do that.
He also invented a new term that I'd never heard of before, called maranoia.
Yes.
You remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
It's kind of the paranoid. It's like marathon paranoia. It's like the fear of something happening to you when you're in taper.
Yes.
You're catching a cold or tripping over the curb or doing something really bad just before the marathon.
Yeah, getting injured in like the last 2 weeks or.
So he's now, I think back to full health and just raising money for prostate cancer awareness and treatment. So if you're out there and you don't get tested, if you're getting blood tested, you can just add it onto your blood testing these days, PSA testing. You don't have to go any further than that. Just get yourself a benchmark, do it.
I guess also it's just kind of a lesson to not ignore your checkups just because you're a runner. We tend to think that we're kind of like, oh, we're so healthy because we run. Usually when you run, and you're kind of concerned about your performance, you also tend to like be a healthier eater maybe because, you want to perform well. And so all that put together, you're like, but I'm in such great shape. So nothing can be wrong.
You would never know because there are no symptoms with prostate cancer. Yeah, I think a lot of guys are a little like I am, which is, don't go to doctors. They're going to tell you something's wrong with you. You don't want to hear that. So why would you go there? I know you laugh every time I say it, but
I
think there are a lot of guys who have that attitude.
They do. They do. Yeah. I kind of noticed that.
Oh, my leg's hurting a lot. Well, go to see the doctor. No, you'll tell me to stop running.
Or why don't you go to the physio? Oh, well, then I'll get a diagnosis and there'll be something wrong with me and I won't be able to run.
Yeah. Until I go, this really sore leg that I can hardly walk on, I can pretend it's nothing. Duh. I think guys in particular are like that. Moving on.
Yeah, on to When Running Made History by Roger Robinson. Another fantastic interview with Roger. He's had a whole lifetime of being a fan of running that started at the age of 9, which was pretty amazing. So it made me realize how much can happen in one lifetime. I mean, he's witnessed so many great performances in his life, starting with I think it was his uncle that took him to a race at the age of 9.
In his book, he talks about the things that he experiences because he was a kid and he went to races as a kid. And then he was an athlete. So he went to races as an athlete. And then he became a commentator or a sports writer. And then he went to, races to cover them.
Yeah.
And so we go all the way from sort of 1948 with Zatopek at the London Olympics. His experience standing in the street in the dark and watching Abibi Bikila run barefoot in the 1960 Rome Marathon. He's the guy who won the Rome Marathon barefoot and put Ethiopia. Was it Ethiopia or Morocco?
Yeah,
I can't remember.
No, I think it's Ethiopia.
Ethiopia on the map. In Ethiopia, this guy is a god because he's basically the first real Ethiopian to rise on the world stage. And then all the way through all the other events, including, he's present at the 2013 Boston bombings and what happened there. And a lot of the things he talked about in his book seem to be a little bit about also fantastic sporting achievements in running, but also how it breaks barriers, transcends, politics and unites people. Some of the things were just those type of things rather than, oh, wow, a gold medal performance.
Yeah, exactly. And he talks a little bit about himself, like his own experience. And one of the things that he talks about is, he kind of like restarted running twice after having he had one knee replacement surgery. So then he kind of like restarted running after that. Then he had a second knee replacement surgery and he had to kind of restart running, but then it meant all his PBs from before were sort of unattainable. He was also, I guess, getting older. So, they were maybe unattainable anyway, but it's sort of this idea of drawing a line in the sand. And so he kind of like drew a line in the sand at his knee replacement. And he's like, okay, now it's like a clean slate. So now I can go and collect a whole new set of PBs. And this is kind of like how we got over the
new records for the new knees.
New records. Yeah. So and it's a kind of a good.
Didn't he tell us that he even runs like a circuit that's on Strava that only he knows about? So he has the record.
That's fantastic. I don't know. I think that's great. Yeah, sometimes you just need to know when to draw the line in the sand so that you don't want to always kind of live in the shadow of your past. I mean, because running is meant to be enjoyed now and wherever you are in your stage of running. So sometimes just, draw the line and give yourself a clean slate like Roger did.
Yeah, and I think one thing I didn't know about Roger before I picked up this book was that actually he's the husband of Catherine Switzer. Catherine Switzer, for people who don't know, was one of the first women, if not the first woman, to run Boston before women were allowed in Boston back in the 60s.
And she was being kind of like pulled off the course. And those are kind of the pictures that you see of that race, where there were some men trying to pull her off the course. But then some of the race participants were like no, I'm going to protect her and she should run.
So quite a power couple there in terms of running knowledge and history. It was quite a privilege to talk with him.
So Running the World by Nick Butter. This one was quite something. Nick Butter ran 196 marathons in 196 countries to achieve a world record. First of all, he ended up running like one marathon every like 3 days or something was the average. And he had to travel to different countries in between that. And some of those countries had a lot of challenges to get to, whether it be like getting a visa or, if they were at war with another country, then you couldn't be coming straight from that country, even though it was right beside. So a lot of logistics. I know that my partner, Andre, he also liked the book. He ended up reading the whole thing, like 450 pages or whatever the book was.
Which if you knew Andre, that's totally amazing.
Yeah, he's not a big reader, but he really got into this one because it's like each country was like a story.
It's true. That's what I felt. Each country was a story in itself.
Yeah.
How on earth is he going to get into Syria without getting killed, or, just that? Or how will he get to North Korea?
It's a story in itself. And although the countries were at war, I mean, there were many kind of regular people that were, just trying to take care of themselves, their families, and they would actually like go out of their way to help him out or to come and like run with him or, just to give him a place to sleep. And I mean, it was just kind of amazing to see that there's so much good in some of these places where,
it's kind
we
of
all
a big statement for human kindness.
Mm-hmm.
And human stupidity to some extent in some places.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess it just also shows that, we're not all that different from each other. We all kind of, care about the same things. And
I think once I talked to Nick Butter, I was kind of, after the event, I was kind of stunned because, if I could sort of try and put it into context for the readers, if you met somebody who was an astronaut, for example, you go, oh, wow, you're an astronaut. We've got a guy in our running club who was like in Top Gun, and he flew jets. And we go, oh wow, what was your call sign? Were you called Maverick? And if you met an astronaut, you'd go, oh wow, that's fascinating, and you'd go, ooh, there are only like, I don't know how many, like 200 people who've been up in space, and you're one of them.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. Well, actually, we were speaking with Nick Butter, and there's only one of him. He's the only guy on the planet who has done this marathon in every country in the world. Mm-hmm. There's only him. And we were talking with him, and no one else has done it. And I was thinking, why doesn't he get more recognition?
Yeah. And imagine all the people that kind of had to work together to make all that possible. I mean, not just, his family, because his family was a huge contributor to the success, but also like in each individual country, there were people that pulled a lot of strings to make things happen and, get him in and out and he was, safe and,
yeah.
It was kind of amazing. It's like, well, like look what all the things that people can accomplish if they work together.
What was quite cool as well, that probably our listeners didn't realize, was that when we were talking to him on the podcast, he was outdoors because he doesn't have a house now. He has a motorhome or something that he just drives around and parks at beaches and sort of lives out of his motorhome. So he was sitting outside on the cliff or something in the
Mm-hmm.
UK. And talking with us. And as we were talking, the sun went down. So we were looking at his pictures on Zoom, and then he was getting darker and darker and darker. And in the end, it was just like a black screen with a few little lights.
Yeah, I think it was his screen was lighting up his face a little bit, like if he came really close, but he was basically in the dark.
But, since he did this world tour, he's a different person afterwards. He has zero worldly goods almost, and he's not really interested in that. He just travels around and does events and raises money for
different charities.
Yeah, different charities. He has a club called the 196 Club, of which I'm now a member, for which I have to pay the exorbitant fee of, I think it's £1.96, £1.96 per month. That's donated to doing charitable works, basically, for other countries around the world.
Mm-hmm. So next on the list was
Mental Training for Ultra Runners by Addie Bracy.
Yeah, I think the big takeaway for me from this book was that sometimes you just need to get out of your own way to be able to see what you can achieve. There's a lot of that, she gives a lot of good tips. But in the end, it's a little bit about you don't really know what you can achieve until you give it a good, honest effort. And sometimes you have to also give yourself a chance mentally, which I think I struggle with a lot.
I think the great thing for this book for me was that generally it really convinced me that I can achieve more than I think I can, and that things are possible that you didn't believe were possible if you just believe a bit more and you follow that belief. And so it was great mindset training for the marathon work that we were doing. It was possible to go into it.
The reading came at a good time.
Yeah,
it was like while we were marathon training.
Yeah. And so it was a book that enabled me to accept that I can probably do more than I think I can do, or achieve a result that is better than I think I can. And I probably became pretty miserable to deal with in our club because I started to tell everybody that they could do more than they. You need to believe you can do more. You can do better than that. You can't take it from me. You can do so much more.
Yeah, but there's too.
Alan, get out of my way.
Yeah, I know, but there's too many people that'll tell you the opposite. Like, we are always good at finding reasons for ourselves why we cannot achieve something. And for sure, like in general in life, like it's easy to find people that are going to criticize you for stuff or give you reasons why you can't achieve something. So I think like it's probably you're doing the club a service.
I think what we learned really is that you can train your body up to achieve something, but your mind at the far end of where you normally are, at the edge of your envelope, your normal envelope, your mind will actually intervene if you're not careful or you're not conscious of it or you're not trained a little bit towards it. And we tend not to be. Your mind on the edge of your normal activity, your mind intervenes and it comes into your subconscious and says, stop, slow down, don't do that. You can't, you shouldn't, because its role is to protect you, not to enable you to do stupid stuff.
Yeah. And it doesn't know that you're gonna stop at 10K. It's like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? I can't sustain this. You're going to go on forever? No way.
Yeah. There was a good discussion in that book about getting in the flow, in the zone, which is always a cool, it's sort of a mystical type thing in running.
Yeah.
It's always a cool thing to talk about.
I was kind of happy to know that it's sort of hard to achieve because, you're always kind of looking for that, because I think a lot of us have had those races where we're just like, I don't know, I was just really in the zone. And you try and go back there and you can't. And Addie kind of explained that you can do certain things to increase your chances of being able to achieve that state. But, it's still a little bit of a mystery. So you might not get there.
Kind of like trying to get to Narnia in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. You can't find your way in until you're not really looking for it. If you go searching for it, you can't actually find it. That's how I sort of envisage it anyway.
So how about Running Against the Odds by Desmond Dunham?
Yeah, Des Dunham. I guess I would describe him as an obsessive coach of Black underprivileged kids. It was great. He's a fantastic energy. It was great talking to him. First, he was a runner. Then he went to college. Then he goofed off a bit and sort of went off the rails a bit. Then got his head together and then became obsessive about coaching school teams to run. In particular, less privileged, I think, Black school teams who maybe didn't get the recognition. So there was a great story there, but I think there was also a great adventure and running finale type to the end of the book, where he ended up coaching and inspiring some girl runners to be so good they were able to go to the Penn Relays, which is kind of the Super Bowl of the junior school activities in running in terms of competitions, and come up against the formidable, previously undefeated Jamaican school teams and have a showdown with them. And the depths to which the girls had to dig to try to be competitive in that was just great reading.
Yeah. And he really got he was able to make them believe in themselves enough that they got out of themselves more than they ever thought they were capable of, which is amazing. I mean, that's just the signature of a great coach.
A brilliant coach.
Yeah. I think for me, it's also, it was a bit inspirational in terms of, sometimes you don't know what you're capable of until you try. Because, you saw him, he just didn't give up, when he ended up losing his scholarship, he didn't say well, this is just the sign that I am not I'm just not destined to have a degree. No, he ended up finding a way to pay that tuition and continue his schooling and get through it. And he made a mistake, but he owned up to it and he got through it one day at a time. Not that it wasn't difficult, but
yeah, an indication of how obsessive he was. At one stage, he got in trouble with his wife because didn't he sell his car or did something?
I think he missed car payments.
Yeah,
I think that's what
he
happened
missed his
because
car payments so he could pay for the kids to travel to an event.
yeah.
He didn't have the money, but he wasn't going to take anything as an excuse, I think.
Yeah, it also shows how much he really cared about his athletes because his athletes, their families didn't always have money to send them on all these to all these events, and so he didn't want them to miss out because of their family's financial status. I think that was because he came from that background, so he knew what it was like to sort of want to do things and achieve, and he wanted to like shelter them from that. So great story.
Yeah, good read. So sort of for me, it was like a half and half story. It was like the story of Des and his life, and then the story of this team that he's coaching and how would they achieve, would they not achieve, would they?
Yeah, there was that. Yeah, it was like that double story. I also what I got out of it was sort of like that we shouldn't let other people put labels on us. Sometimes you kind of get labeled, like he was labeled with dyslexia, so usually you think, okay, well, it means that
Can't learn.
yeah, you can't learn. So, well, what do? Well, I'm going to just give up on going to school and getting a university degree. But, he didn't sort of let that affect him trying. Proof that sometimes you don't know what you're capable of.
Good stuff. So on to book number 1, 2, 3, 4, 6.
7.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Book number 7. I can't count. The Ultra Mile by Tim Wills. This is sort of a guy telling his own story and self-publishing his first ever book. So totally different to some of the other books. So it was pretty interesting to come at this, to talk to somebody who's a first-time self-publisher. There was a whole bunch of training tips in there, and then some insight into Tim and his mindset and why he's interested in going the ultra distance, and how does he cope with that in terms of what attracts you. It always fascinates me because it always looks as if it hurts a lot.
Yeah, me too.
I think one of the things I
can't
say
wrap
is,
my mind around that.
the average ultra runner who's doing 100 miler. So, we're not talking about 50Ks here. I mean, I feel I can handle a 50K, but I feel I don't want to go anywhere near 100 miles. For me, they never seem to be really, really enjoying themselves. I think it's an insight. They never look very happy. I think it's an internal process. Except for Courtney DeWalter, she's the only one who smiles all the way through. Seems
she's happy all the time.
Yeah, so it always fascinates me talking to these kind of people. What attracts them to go deeper and further, and how do they deal with it? Because everybody has lows in these things. It's not like you're avoiding hitting the wall when you're a 100 miler. No. You don't avoid it. You go through it. You go through it several times. You don't know.
You're pretty much guaranteed to hit the wall. Whereas in marathoning, like that's part of the training is you're trying to see, okay, how much effort. Yeah, how much effort can I put in, but like make sure the wall doesn't arrive before 42K, or at least not before 40. If you have it for 2K, it's fine. But these guys, I mean, there's no way you're ever going to avoid the wall ever. So yeah, and they keep coming back. Tim Wills is running, he's ran several of these over 100-mile races.
Yeah, and he seems to be looking for more. The big learning that I got from sort of talking with Tim about how you deal with this is the idea of chunking your effort, chunking your run, chunking being you chop it into pieces. I think probably you would do this naturally, but if not, it seems you can't really envisage a huge, massive run in one piece. So all you do is you just chunk it. So you take the first piece, you put that into your mindset, and you push everything else away. You go, okay, I'll deal with that when I get to it. I won't even think about it.
Yeah.
I'll just go to the next aid station, or I'll go to the top of that mountain, or whatever the chunk is that you decide. And that seems to be a way in which ultra runners generally manage their runs.
Yeah. I think also chunking, I mean, it's good for everybody, right? I remember running 5Ks on the track, which is like 12 and a half laps. And we used to, our coach had said to think about it in 4 3-lap sections. So when you're in your 3-lap section, you're either on the first lap, you're in the middle, or it's your last lap. And then that's it. Then you reset and you think about, okay, it's the next 3 laps. And so that's kind of how I was taught to think about the 5K on the track. And so it's sort of like the same idea, but I guess the distances are longer in these ultra marathons.
Yeah, I guess when you think about it, it was a bit like our marathon that was like a double out and back. We said, well, it's 4 chunks.
Yeah.
Out, back, out, back. So we said, okay, for this chunk, we're going to do this. For the next chunk, we'll have the wind on our back. So we'll conserve. That's what we said, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
We'll conserve. And then when we turn and we have the wind in our face again, we'll have a little bit of energy and we'll be able to fight the wind and stay on course, which we couldn't do. But there you go. At least we had the plan.
I think our chunking was good. It was the conditions that didn't really, we weren't expecting it to pick up. I mean, the wind was already bad enough in the first chunk.
One of the things as well with the ultra mile and Tim Wills is about governing his mindset. So he talked about, you got to keep trying to turn your mind into positive places, because when you go into a dark hole on an ultra, you can go very dark and very deep. So you've got to be able to stop yourself from doing that. I
was surprised by also the planning your crew. Like, you don't just plan your race in ultras. You also have to plan what your crew is going to do in some of these things. Like he was saying that even for the later stages, when he is in that dark place, he needs to plan. He chooses his crew members because they kind of are the people that know what to say to him when he's in those moments to kind of help him, I guess, overcome that.
Yeah, you don't want somebody running next to you going, oh, you're limping a little bit. Oh, yeah, you should be thinking of dropping out. You're done if you have someone like that. You'll be done very quickly.
Yeah. And I guess it depends who you are, because like maybe you don't want somebody to be like fresh and chirpy and just like tell you all kinds of positive things because you're feeling really crummy.
So you feel like punching them.
Yeah. And then that wouldn't be very good because
a whole game.
You'd be missing a crew member.
So moving on, book number 8, to some extent, a similar but very different book, An Unstoppable Runner by David Williams.
Similar in that they both like to do ultra distance events.
Except talking with David, I found a whole new place on the map of the world. Another spot of paradise called Flinders Island, where he seems to live, which is somewhere between Australia and Tasmania, like in the middle of the water there. There's a 60-mile island called Flinders Island, and that's where he lives. And I think he came from the UK or South Africa originally.
But he lived in Sydney for a while.
Yeah.
I remember you guys, that's what you had in common.
Yeah, and that was kind of cool talking with David, because I was able to reminisce about some of the runs that I did in Sydney, Australia. And probably we were in the same races, some of the same races at the same time, but didn't know it because we hadn't met each other by then. The book describes a whole life experience of ultra running, because he's sort of in his 70s now, I think, and still doing some sort of slower walk run type things. But there were some good insights of events that maybe you don't always see on the calendars, Boston Marathon or these kind of things that everybody kind of knows about if you're in endurance running. The one that was my favorite that he was talking about was a 6-day event that he did in Cambodia. So he sort of describes his running there, and you go, oh, wow, this is different.
Yeah, I remember.
You don't hear about this very often.
Yeah, and I think you were kind of inspired, and you were kind of in the back of your mind. I could see that you were probably planning like where you can fit that in your race calendar.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be going to Portugal in April, but how could I fit Cambodia in?
and then this is where I tell you, but Alan, you could just do it another year, and then you tell me no, but I don't know how many I have left.
Yeah,
I have to do it all this year.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. What you say there, fantastic. You understand.
Yeah, I think we've had that back and forth a few times. I really liked David Williams' book because, it kind of highlights that the great thing about running is, the value of the experiences, and it's not always about speed and podiums and medals, which, like, for sure, a lot of people, maybe that's what gets you into running, but then what keeps you there is really the experiences, the camaraderie. And I think a little bit also that, everybody has demons that you have to overcome to finish a race in a time that you're proud of. And it doesn't matter what that time is. And it doesn't matter even what the distance is. I mean, even if you're running a 5K as fast as you can, like, you still have a point in the race where you'll have that demon come and sit on your shoulder and be like, nah, you can't hold this for the rest of the race. And you have to find a way to, flick him off and be like, yes, I can, and get right back to the pace you were trying to hold.
Yeah, that's a great point, because one of the things that's occurring to me is if we ever get down to trying to achieve this 3-hour marathon, we're going to have exactly that for the last couple of miles, the last 3 or 4 miles.
Hopefully it's only the last 3 or 4 miles.
Well, if you're on target, you're going to be on target, but you're going to be probably straining at your limit, and you're going to have your little demons screaming at you, no, stop, stop, stop. And you're going to have to overcome that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking forward to having that rendezvous.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on.
Run Well by Dr. Juliet McGrattan. So this one was kind of a question and answer format, which was really good, and written by a medical doctor. So, you can pretty much take her advice, although she does have a lot of times the disclaimer that, you should probably also consult your own doctor if, you have specific questions about you specifically. But it was really a great book. I was kind of disappointed about the fact that I can't do anything about my runny nose while I'm running. So apparently this is just something I got to deal with because there is no cure. So that was kind of disappointing to find out.
There's no cure, but there's a treatment. Snot rockets.
Yeah.
I can teach you how to do that.
No, Andre would love if you taught me how to do that, but I'm
too
afraid. I'm too afraid of, like, getting it on my shoe. Like, that would be embarrassing. Or what if, you're in the middle of a race and, like, you end up with, like, snot on your shirt? Maybe there's a technique, but, like, these are all the images that I have in my head.
Big deal. That's what I would say. Well, the other thing is to get a buff, wrap it around your wrist, and wipe your nose on it.
Yeah. That's pretty much sometimes my solution when I remember to have a buff.
Yeah, it was a fantastic. I love talking with Juliet. She's so knowledgeable, and she had all the knowledgeable answers to all the questions that everybody asks. Like, oh, my knee hurts when I do this. Oh, well, that could be this, or that could be this. Puts it all back into medical research, real issues. But also, she had loads of great did you knows. Basically, don't ask Google, ask Juliet McGrattan. She knows the real answer to why your knee hurts when you run, or sometimes I get a headache if I run in the cold, or why does the sole of my foot hurt when I do this, or how come, all of those questions that every runner would ask. Almost any question I could think of, it was covered by the book. But being a bit of a nerd, I liked all the little did you know that. So, like,
yeah.
Did you know that your lungs, if you opened them out fully, would cover the size of a tennis court?
Yeah, I liked
that's fantastic.
I like the did you know that your liver weighs 1.5 kilos?
Yeah, that was.
I mean, that's a big liver. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you know that sex on average only consumes 70 calories as an activity? So don't kid yourself that you're exhausting yourself before your run.
I was kind of reassured by the kidney section because, I learned all the things that can make our creatinine level increase, because I had some like high creatinine levels at not my last blood test. Those were normal, but in the summer I had that. And I found out, there's a lot of things that can increase your creatinine level. And it doesn't mean that you've scrapped your kidneys. Because your kidneys can recover from all kinds of abuse that we put them through. So that was pretty reassuring.
I was pretty reassured that it's a fact that running will protect you and reduce your risk from a number of different cancers.
Mhm.
I was
Yeah,
thinking, oh,
that's
it's just runners thinking they're healthy again. But no, there's actual factual data that shows you're at a low risk by running of all kinds of things. I mean, diabetes is an obvious one for me as an ex-pharmacist. Think, oh, okay, exercise is one way of coping and or fighting off diabetes, but
mhm.
cancers, wow, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So totally different book, but actually a lot of fun. Loads of stuff about digestive systems and reproductive systems.
Yes, yep. So if you're looking to the answers to all those questions, that's where you should look.
Just made me glad I was a guy and not a gal.
Yeah, I have to say that the women seem to have a lot more
Challenges.
places where they can have issues, or times of their life when they can have issues. It's completely unfair.
I'll take it. Moving on, The Anatomy of Speed. This is our last book of this cycle, The Anatomy of Speed by Bill Parisi. The first thing that struck me on this book was that basically don't go, oh, speed. Yeah, I'm not a fast runner, so I don't need that stuff. So I'll ignore this podcast or I'll ignore this book. In fact, speed is good and beneficial for slower people and older people, and has benefits to your running that might not be obvious to begin with, but is actually good for you if done correctly.
So basically, if you skip that podcast because you were like, oh, Anatomy of Speed, I don't need that, you should now go back and listen to it.
You should.
Yeah. Bill Parisi is very knowledgeable.
I'm talking to you, Coach Bill. Go back, listen to it.
So I guess for me, it kind of just reinforced the importance of a proper warm up. I guess I kind of always knew that sort of intuitively, because, you feel it when you sort of do intervals on the track and the first few feel hard. Well, if you had a proper warm up, then that would not happen as much. And I guess also the idea of a pre-warm up, that was sort of a bit new, but it was so well explained in the book that it's kind of, I take out my foam roller prior to going to the runs now sometimes, and I try and do a little of that.
I'm the same. I wouldn't say I'm anywhere near perfect, but I do a little bit more than I used to.
Yeah, exactly.
A little bit is better than nothing, and a little bit more is better than what you did before.
I think the challenge will be, are we still going to do that little bit when we start that marathon plan in the summer?
Yeah, that's going to be
that's going to
challenge
be a challenge
when we have a big load of running to do as well. The big learning is the fascia system is where it's at with respect to performance, because this is the thing that gives you the elasticity of your body. And in fact, flexing your fascia system and using your fascia system is basically just using your body's natural connective tissue to give you elastic type energy. So you're not using your muscles. It's sort of free energy. Use your muscles to push it along. But by using the elasticity of your natural elasticity, you get a little bit of free energy. So you can get speed or endurance by training that system. And that's what Bill's Anatomy of Speed is basically about.
Also, in the discussion, I learned that the neurological system is all a lot of nerve endings are in your fascia, and so by training your fascia, you're also training a bit your neurological system. So that I guess your muscles fire up in the right way and are coordinated, and it's also good for preventing injuries.
Fascinating stuff on weights, how much you should be able to squat press to be fast. I can't do that.
No, I was glad that he clarified that, for endurance runners, it's a bit different. Like it's a fraction of the amount that was in the book, but then you should be able to do, I don't remember, 6 or 8 squats instead, but with much less weight, which seemed much more doable to me.
I think he was talking still about 1.3 times your body weight or something, or 0.8 times your body weight.
Yeah, I think 0.8 for me.
Yeah.
And I
think I can do
body
0.2.
weight.
I can do 0.2.
No, that's all you have in your living room. But I'm sure if you went to a gym, you'd be able to do more.
Something to work on, that's for sure. I was fascinated by the fact that your speed could be influenced by your running speed could be influenced by how many pull-ups you can do how many chin-ups you can do, because it's kind of an illustration of your overall elasticity or your overall connectivity in terms of, I couldn't get my mind around pull-ups as sort of arm strength. And what's that going to do with my legs being able to push me along? But he sort of explains that, and he explains the science about how all this works in terms of comes together, which was quite fascinating. It's sort of one of those, oh, wow, I didn't know any of that stuff. Whereas a lot of the stuff we talk about and we read, you go, oh, yeah, I know a little bit about that, but tell me more.
Yeah. Or like, oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah. Bill Parisi's Anatomy of Speed, there was some areas of it, because it's not coming necessarily from endurance running. It's coming from just speed work, whatever. There was a couple of moments where you go, oh, wow, are you sure? And then he goes through all the science and you go, okay, it's kind of an eye opener, but that's fun. It's part of the learning experience of doing these podcasts. Anything else to close out?
I think that's it for me.
So how do you feel about the books we've read? Do you prefer like training books or talking with people about their stories, technical stuff, or what?
Yeah, I think currently I've sort of recognized that I've got a gap in the psychology department. You know, I feel like the whole notion of like self-confidence.
Knew you were crazy.
Yeah, so now I'm just admitting it to myself because everybody else would have known. But yeah, so I think for me, I've been kind of drawn in by the psychology books, like the mental training.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, just because I feel like I probably have a lot of work to do there. I mean, in terms of just, being more confident in my ability to improve and in my ability to perform, and just maybe even just doing things that I'm not good at in running. Like I'm not good at trail running, but maybe part of that is because I'm not really confident in the trails, but maybe if I work on that, then, some of it will translate into my other running. So I don't know. I feel like I've been kind of hooked on those types of books. I definitely love training books though, because, I love reading all about the new types of training, like an Anatomy of Speed and, like trying a new training plan. That's always fun, like we've been doing.
Yeah. From my perspective, I think I have a big gap in my appreciation of nutrition. So not necessarily reflected in these books, but something that's ongoing.
I think a lot of books touch on them. Yeah, because even like Run Well with Dr. Juliet, she talks a little bit about some nutrition she answers some of the questions in her book, I think.
And also, I think there's more I can do with strength training. So as an older runner, I think I've started to try to take on more protein. So I asked the question, where's the protein in my diet? And not only do I need protein in all my meals, but I need extra protein because I'm at that age now where my muscle wastage will be ongoing, and I've got to try and fight against that. And I need to do extra strength training as well to help my muscles, what little feeble muscles I've got left.
Well, I've got that problem too, because apparently you start having more muscle wastage after like the age of 30. So, I mean,
yeah,
we're both there. I should have more protein.
Okay, so that's that. We hope everybody got as much as we did out of those 10 books. I guess we'll be around with another normal episode with another new book pretty darn soon.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Running Book Reviews. If you'd like to leave us feedback about how we can improve the podcast, or want to suggest a book that you'd like for us to review in a future episode, please leave us a comment on social media. We are Running Book Reviews on Facebook and Instagram, and on Twitter, we are reviews_running. Please also follow us on social media to find out about new episodes when they're released, or you can just subscribe to our podcast on your favorite streaming platform. We also have a page on the Buy Me a Coffee website where if you'd like to help us out, you can go and buy us a coffee. We are under Running Book Reviews or Alan and Liz. I think if you search those two, you'll find us, but I will also link it in the show notes.
We don't want to become caffeine addicts, but we are prepared to receive some coffees.
Bye for now.
Bye for now.